This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. We have a small but mighty crowd, right? Be small and mighty. My name is Quanesha Johnson, and you can see me on the bottom of the screen. I am by day a therapist, and I have a private practice that belongs to me called BTG Counseling and Educational Services. And so half of the day I am doing counseling 101. Before the pandemic, I would see people in my office and we would go over issues of life, anxiety, depression, relationships. And then the other part of my life, I get to come in and do things like this with lovely people as yourself. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation about communication skills. And it's such an important thing, communication, because we just don't do it. We work on it lifelong and we don't perfect it, but it's important that we work on it. Okay? So I'm going to give you something to do because I got to rev you up because it's 6 of you. And if I'm up here talking by myself and just looking at you, it doesn't make it any fun, So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you an activity to start. I'm going to read you something. So I'm going to read you a list of words, right? Don't write anything down. I'm going to read them one time. Okay? These are the instructions. I'm going to give you the list of words. Can't write them down. Going to read them out to you and just listen carefully. And then I'm going to, later on, I'm going to see how many words you remember from the list I give you. Okay? We ready? We listening? Okay. Dream, sleep, night, mattress, snooze, sheet, nod, tired, night, artichoke, insomnia, blanket, night, alarm, nap, snore, pillow. Only one time, right? That's the only time I'm going to read to you. Just a question. How many people like the weather like this today? Or would you rather it be cold? Because it's kind of hot outside. What would you prefer? You like it like this hot? Who likes it? Who likes like the cold, like fall weather or winter weather? You like it like that? Yeah. Me too. I like it. I don't like it when it's like 70s, almost 80. The body's very confused. Okay. So let's go back. I just had to ask that because it's really nice outside. So now I'm going to ask you guys, right, to tell me. I want you to tell me by writing them down all of the words that you remembered from what I told you a minute ago. So take a piece of paper and a pen, and I want you to write down every word you believe you remembered. Nothing's the right word? Okay, let's see if I have something deeper. I don't think I do. I have writing paper. I don't write paper. Like all the high school on piece of paper. You have something to write with? Okay, no worries. I found a pen there, and I believe there's. So, of course, my pleasure. So, all of the words that I gave you, I want you to write the words down. Okay. And then when you're all done, count how many words you have done. And then I want to see. Anyone think they have all of the words I read? No. All right, I'm going to tell you. Can you take a guess how many words I read? 17. 17. No. Okay. So okay. So nobody has 17 words. 17 words, 16 words, 15 words, 14, 13, 12,
I have 12.
11. You have 12?
Yeah, I have 12.
Oh,
I hope they're
awesome.
right,
Okay.
but I have 12.
Okay. So this is what we're going to do. Now I'm going to have a word here. Now I want you to, the 12 words that you have, since you have the most, no one write extra words. That's a condition. You can't write extra ones. I'm starting at 12.
Okay.
Read to me the words that you have.
Tired, pillow, mattress, snooze, insomnia, nod, snore, night, sleep, alarm, sheet, and dream.
What was that L word you said?
I don't have an L word.
Did you say sleep?
I think yeah, I said sleep. And
Okay,
sheet. I think you said sheet also. I'm not sure.
yes. Okay, awesome. So you have 12. All right. Anybody have any? Excellent. Very good. So I have 17. Now I'm going to read the words that I have here for you. Anybody have 11? You have 11? Okay, what do you have? Yeah, no. No, it's okay. It's so interesting. So you said bed, right? I did not have bed on the list one time. No. Why do you think he said bed? Say it again. Yeah. And then a lot of words that I said were connected to sleep, to rest, right? I'm going to read you the word. Dream, sleep, night, mattress. Snooze, sheet, nod, tired, night again. And you said apricot, artichoke, insomnia, blanket, night, alarm, nap, snore, pillow. So you tried to make the connection, but you were listening intently. And then what happened after I read the word? Do you remember what I did? Say it again. I talked about something random that you were like, why is she asking me about the weather? That wasn't because I just don't know how to like segue. It was just to distract you. And so in starting and talking about communication, I gave you a listening activity, right? And so just to demonstrate the importance of listening intentionally and intently, which we'll talk about. And I love the way the brain makes connections too. It was like you hear something, you try to make connections on something, and so maybe it wasn't bed, but there was mattress there. And then maybe it wasn't all the words connected. Maybe it wasn't artichoke, apricot, but it was artichoke. So that was just an activity to get you going, get your brains going, listening carefully. You guys did pretty well. So very good there. But just the importance of how we listen and the intentionality of listening. So let's get busy on the 411 on communication skills. And I want to thank my friend for reading 12 words. Excellent, very good. I'll click it myself. All right, so what is communication? So communication, and I underline the word process because there's a process to it, and I demonstrated a little bit of that now, by which information is exchanged between individuals and through a common system of symbols, of signs, and behavior. Communication, very importantly, is the foundation of all relationships. You can't have a relationship without communicating. And a lot of, even in relationships, marriages, and there's like this high rate of divorce. And so there's different reasons we can think about why people break up. But the core of it is communication. Because if they're breaking up because they're fighting about the kids, it's communication involved. They don't communicate properly. Or if it's a money situation, they're not communicating appropriately because of money. So it's the foundation of any relationship you're in, even if it's someone very close, if it's someone distant, if it's your workplace, if it's your classmate, your teachers, it's the foundation and it's what connects us. It's our connector. So what does it involve? I told you earlier, the exchange of messages. So I had that word there, exchange. So in a relationship dynamic, it can't be one way. It can't be just me talking or me listening. There has to be some sort of exchange. It has to be, as I said earlier, when I was giving you those words, there has to be a level of intention in it. You gotta do it on purpose. I know sometimes we think, especially now with cell phones, I always joke about like, we think we are in the era of multitasking. So we often think that we're able to listen to a conversation and then be on our cell phone. And so the brain is able to multitask, but to a certain degree. So it has to be intentional listening, and then you have to clearly express yourself. And so that's the two-way street, the exchange. You have to intentionally listen, so listening on purpose, and then clear expression. When I'm communicating with someone, I have to know what I want to say and be able to give them that information. Very importantly, with communication, it involves verbal messages, but also non-verbal messages. So for example, right now I'm talking to you, I'm communicating, right? You hear what I'm saying, you hear my words. But what would, if I came here, right? I'm smiling now, I'm talking to you, I'm giving you information. And so if I walked in the door, right through the door, I came in with my bags and I was like, today we're going to talk about communication. Before I even said today we're going to talk about communication, what did my nonverbal message say? Come in.
You're in a bad mood.
I'm in a bad mood, right? What else? Okay, what if you didn't hear me before I talked? Just me walking in, slamming down my bag. And maybe I'm communicating, I don't want to be here. We have to be mindful of that. That's why we're having this conversation today, because it's not just about what you say, it's what your body's doing. So wanting you to be mindful. Anybody here ever been in a situation where you're upset about something, frustrated, whatever the emotion is, and someone says, are you okay? And you go, I'm fine. And then they ask you again, and they're asking you again because you're verbalizing, I'm fine. But if your arms are crossed, if your aspect has a grimace on it, your verbal and your nonverbal message don't go together. So we have to make sure that when we're communicating, there's some sort of harmony with the two. And so we have to be mindful of that. We're exchanging a message, we're intentionally listening, and we're clearly expressing ourselves. And that communication is just not what we say. It's what our body is saying. Our body sometimes speaks before our mouth. When I walked in and slammed my bag down, before I said we're here for communication, you said tone, right? So I did a tone after, but my body did something first. So I want you to be mindful. We're talking about communication, like I said, because it is the connector and you can't get away from it. Even if you walk around and go, well, I'm just a quiet person, I'm shy. You can't avoid communicating. You have to do it. So where did we learn to communicate? So give me some information. Where did you learn how to communicate first? Your parents? Absolutely. First people in your life that you communicate with, you learn it from them. Whoever you live with, who else? Where do you learn how to communicate? Your peers, right? Going to school, learn things from them. What else? Siblings, oh, absolutely, siblings, right? We get down. Who else? Yeah, authority, right? Teachers, awesome answers. So parents and your caregivers are your first communicators, right? They're your first teachers. It's where you learn first from them. I always give the story about how I have 3 children. And when they were small, and they were very small, couldn't like put words together. I remember first my daughter would take my phone and she would put it towards her ear and she would go, blah, 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 blah. And then there was no words. She didn't say anything, but I communicated something. She first watched me put the phone to my ear, and maybe I'm talking with emotional expression. So all she could make out was blah, 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 blah. And she would be saying these things and there was no words put together. So I, as her teacher, she watched me do things. Or if you watch your parents do things, or your siblings, they are teachers. They're teaching you how to communicate. So your home is the first place. Your home is the first place. I remember when my mom was mad, when she would be upset with me in public, I would get a look. And that let me know later on, I'm going to be in trouble. So I learned that. Or when she was upset, my mom would close the door and go in her room. And sometimes when I would go to the door, she would demonstrate being frustrated. It had nothing to do with me. But I learned then that message that when you're upset, you go to yourself, you isolate, you close the door. So that was my first line of communication, watching what my parents did. Nonverbal and verbal messages from our environment, right? So we said our schools and everything, siblings, teachers, authority. So I'll give you an example from me. Tell me, what ways did your parents communicate with you nonverbal? What were nonverbal messages you got from your parents? Examples of it. Hugs, right? What did that hug say? I love you, affection. And they didn't even have to say anything, right? You feel it. Excellent, awesome. Any nonverbal message? The silence, right, is a nonverbal message. The silence says I'm upset, I'm frustrated, I'm tired, whatever it is, right? So that's a nonverbal. Excellent. So my hug and then my silence. Absolutely. So I'm glad you bring that up because we think that saying something means I'm okay. But your nonverbal is communicating. Silence is still a message. Silence is a message. And we think the opposite. That's why we tout I'm quiet. But we think we're not saying anything. If I just sit here, if I just come to class and sit all the way in the back and just listen to my professor teach, my silence is still giving a message. Anybody else? Any nonverbals from your parents that you remember? I said for mine, it was a look. Because I was good at when I was young, I would like tell my family business in public. Because I think you're literal. I would say something I had no business because it was supposed to be for home. And then my mother, her lip was, and I knew I was going to get in trouble, but I was little and I didn't know that. Somebody, and me and my brother was there, like smile at them, but not smile at us, and then smile back. And that was a look, right? Like I don't really do something to get me out of here. Yes, love it, love it. Were you gonna say something? Yes. Yeah, yeah. But look at how the nonverbals has a lot, right? How you can decipher from the eyes said it. And even today we're wearing masks everywhere we go, and we have to decipher the nonverbal message. I love giving anecdotes and stories. So I told the last group that I went to get a few months ago, probably early spring, before they like changed the mask mandate, before they said, oh, if you're vaccinated, take it off, before that. So I had went to get some blood work taken. And I remember, I always think of a lab as a medical facility, right? Like if you go to the hospital, everyone's wearing masks, right? Whether if they believe in it or not. So I walk into LabCorp and they're in the waiting area immediately. I look over and I see a man with no mask on sitting there. And I just thought it was odd. I was like, this was before CDC said anything. I was like, he's sitting there where people draw blood and he doesn't have a mask on. And I have my mask on. You go to the kiosk and you type in your name to wait for them to call you. So I guess I gave a nonverbal because I saw him sitting there. You can't see this half. You only see here, right? Up the eyes. So I suppose my nonverbal gave a message because I keyed my name in. I walked in, I saw him. I keyed my name in, and then I walked out. It was nice outside. I said to myself, hey, I'm not ready at that time to sit in an environment with maskless. So guess what? I'm going to go outside. About a minute later, so I'm just standing outside, I'm playing on my phone. The man comes out of the lab court. He passes me, and he goes to his car. Guess what he goes to get? Take a guess. He had no mask on in the lobby. He went to go get a mask. He grabs a mask, and then as he's putting it on, and as he's passing me, he goes, I'm fully vaccinated, you know. And I thought it was hilarious because I never verbalized to him anything. There was something about my nonverbal, right, that gave off my discomfort, which was what? What do you think? What was one indicator that I was uncomfortable? Yeah, I walked out. But he couldn't see this down here because this, before mask, this would have showed that I was displeased, right? But now it's so hard now because we're not able to demonstrate a message with this. So that was an interesting situation because I was like, I didn't say anything to him. I didn't stomp off. I didn't do anything. I walked out. And that was my nonverbal message of discomfort. So just remember, we're giving off verbals and nonverbals. I didn't tell him to do anything. I didn't report him. I didn't roll my eyes. I kiosk and I turned around and I was just standing outside playing with my phone. So this is a message to say that even when we're not speaking, we're saying something. That's why we're always working on sharpening our communication skills, verbal and nonverbal. And you all gave me these answers earlier. You said you learned from siblings, your relatives, friends, teachers at school, and no one said the media. Think about media, whether it's television, whether it's newspapers, whether it's social media like Instagram. I mean, Instagram wasn't probably around. Oh, it's Instagram and Facebook. Hey, I don't know how old everyone is. I'm a little old, so that wasn't my thing when I was younger. So yeah. You know what? I thought that was it called something else? I think it was always Facebook, but yeah. But still spaces where people are learning how to communicate, right? When you're young, if you're coming up in the era, like my children now, like I have a teenager on social media, she's learning a lot of information from there. So we learn communication from those spaces. So let's talk about communication styles. Now, as I go through them, I want you to think of yourself. And I'm not here to judge and say that you don't communicate this way off with your head. No, it's more so for us to be reflective today to see, are there ways as we're sharpening our tools that we can do things a little bit different? So let's see. So first we have passive communication, right? So when we're passive and we communicate, there's avoidance of what you want to say. Here's the key part, because it makes someone else uncomfortable. There's one thing where I'm choosing my battle. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. Like that man sitting in lab court. Somebody else, because I've seen it happen, there's been a lot of fights and things, a lot of emotions are heightened during this pandemic. I've seen people go back to back about masks and things in public. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced that. There's a lot of heightened emotions, right? So, but when you're passive, so me not going to him is me choosing, it's not passivity, it's me saying, hey, I can go outside. If he's there and LabCorp didn't correct him in their facility, I can go outside, I'm cool. It was nice outside, it's mine. It's when you avoid communicating only because it makes someone uncomfortable. So it's like stepping on my foot, right? And we're like crowded. and you're stepping on my foot, and I'm like, my foot is hurting so badly, but if I say something, they might be mad at me, but my foot's hurting, and I don't know what to do, because I don't want them to be upset with me. Like, how do I say it? And then I'm sitting there thinking about how to tell someone to stop hurting me, because I don't want to make them upset. That's being passive. Because I'm being harmed, or I need to communicate something, and I don't, because it's about someone's comfort, and I forgot my own. That's being passive. Me choosing not to speak to that man, that's just a choice. Passivity, being passive in your communication, is I need this thing. I need this thing to happen. I'm in pain. You're hurting me. It can be physically, emotionally. I'm not going to tell you because you might be mad at me. That's being passive. So as I'm reading through, I want you to reflect. Next, aggressive. Totally opposite. When I'm aggressive, maybe I'm speaking loudly, I'm raising my voice, I'm demanding, I'm intimidating, I might blame you, criticize you, and in most cases, when I'm aggressive, I'm not listening to anything you're saying. It's all about what I'm saying, right? So that's a difference. Totally opposite. Passivity, when I'm passive, it's more about I don't want to make you uncomfortable. When I'm aggressive, I don't care what you're saying because it's about my comfort. And so that's totally where we should not be falling in line with aggression. I have to make you intimidated or feel intimidated to get my point across. We don't want that communication. Remember, we're reflecting. That's what I do therapy for a living. So everything's about reflection, right? And not being down on ourselves, but saying where do I fall? Assertiveness. So assertive, I'm going to be more straightforward in my expression of what I want and what I need. And I can also care about what you want and what you need. So I can be assertive and say, these are my needs, or what are yours? I always think about in a relationship, if you're in a romantic relationship with someone, it can't be me. I want this. I'm able to be assertive and go, you know what I would like? I would like this. Well, what would you like? You know what I would like to eat for dinner tonight? I want to have a hamburger and fries. I want that. What do you want to eat for dinner tonight? And maybe we can come in the middle. Maybe you want pizza, right? I don't know. But maybe I can express myself instead of going, oh, I really want this, but if I say it, then maybe you won't, no. So when we're assertive, we're straightforward. And we're not trying to hurt someone or harm someone. We are just expressing our wants and our needs. But we're also caring about the needs and wants of others. And so this here is, out of all four, this is my least favorite. Aggression is probably up there too. If you're aggressive, I know you're aggressive, right? I can tell. If you're passive, I can sense it too. Assertive, passive aggressive, I don't know what direction you're coming from. That communication is, if you come from the left, I don't know, maybe you're coming from the right. It says what appears on the surface is not, and it doesn't match what the person really feels like. And so the person that, this is the key right here. When you communicate in a passive aggressive manner, you the communicator, you feel powerless because you're presenting something surface, but internally you don't feel that. That's not gonna work. I'm gonna present in this way, but I really feel the total opposite. It builds a resentment in a person when they're passive aggressive, and I most likely see passive aggressiveness in people's body language. So I'll give you an example of passive aggressiveness. Don't want to gross you out, but I've seen this on TV. I've seen in a restaurant, let's say for example, not only to see the behind the scenes, not the restaurant setup. Let's say you go to a restaurant and you are a waiter, waitress, and your table, your food is slow, because everything's slow today more than ever. There's not a lot of people working in the restaurant. Right, so I come into the restaurant and I want my food, it takes forever. I'm frustrated because I'm hungry. You know, with the hunger and the anger mix, I have an attitude. So you as my waiter or waitress, you bring my food late, you don't cook it. We know that, right? You're nice, you're considerate, but you bring the food to the table late, and your table is livid. So you bring it down, you apologize, you're caring, you're assertive and saying, I'm so sorry this happened. You're talking to them, communicating with them, and they're living. So then they take the food, they shove it out the way. They go, what, are you stupid? Like, how long does it take to make a hamburger? Like, it must, and you didn't do anything, right? And so they make you feel terrible, small, they're yelling at you, they curse at you. And so you just, that way, you feel you're boiling inside. You go to the back, you say nothing, you allow them to keep going, right? You go to the back of the thing, you go to the back of the kitchen, and they ask for extra fries. I don't know what happens next time. The passive aggressive person. Then instead of saying, I'm going to get my manager, because I'm fuming, they're disrespectful and I don't deserve that. Or saying, sir, madam, I know you're upset, and I'm so sorry that your food is late, but please don't curse at me. You say that, right? You're not being rude and disrespectful. You go in the back with those fries, you go, I got something special for those fries. And instead of communicating assertively, you take their french fries and you drop them on the floor, you rub your feet on them. I'm telling you the story of this. I saw this on a show. I don't know if it was Inside Edition. Somebody took a hamburger bread and put it in their pan. This is, I wish I could make it up. You're going to look at your hamburger bread different from now on. But this is really happening. And I only made up a scenario because I said that person must have felt like upset to do that. I don't know if they just went in the back and did it. I in the front, right, as the waiter or waitress walked up and they're yelling at me. And I'm just like, I let it happen. So I'm okay. Maybe I even smile all the way, but I'm fuming. So my aggression is what I do in the back. So that's an extreme example, but like I said, I saw whatever the clip was on Inside Edition, they had the cameras in the kitchen and they took the bun and then went like this with the bun. True story, right? I'm only designing in my mind what could have happened on the floor, right? So my whole point is that person felt a certain way, right? They felt powerless. Someone's cursing at me. They were resentful. Like, I worked here, I'm on my feet, I'm working hard, and you're disrespecting me. But their communication was opposite. So we want to be mindful, although it's an extreme example, of passive aggressive communication. We want to work on as much as possible asserting ourselves, our wants and needs, and not feeling like, I'm going to present in this way, but on the back end, I do this. That's passive aggressiveness. So I want you to look at all of these, just look at it for a second. I'm going to ask you about it later on. But these are the 4 types of communication styles, and so I'll ask you a question about it later on. So the title of this was, we talked about communication being a dance, and I'll tell you why. When we communicate effectively, just like a dance, we are in lockstep with one another. So I've been asking all my groups, have you ever heard of or seen Dancing with the Stars? And a lot of people have never watched it. Anybody watch it? Seen it? Like a lot of you wouldn't even believe people are like, I never saw it. So I was right here. So Dancing with the Stars. And so I'm comparing, I want you to think about a dance. So we're watching them, they're getting scores based upon how they're dancing. So communication that's effective, that works, means that the 2 people communicating are in lockstep, left foot, right foot, right? They're in harmony. Imagine watching it and they're playing the music, they're doing a foxtrot, whatever dance, and the music's playing, but one's going this way, one's going that way. So communication is like a dance because we do it effectively when we're in lockstep. Left foot, right foot. When we practice, you go that way, I go that way. Each dancer or communicator has a different skill and approach to dancing. No matter what, 2 dancers never are exactly identical. There's a different skill. Someone's more fluid in their hips. Someone's more fluid in their shoulders. But they can come together and they're coming with a different skill. So when you're talking to someone, right, or you have a friend, a parent, a child, a sibling, you're coming, you gotta remember that person has a different skill and a different approach. They may be very good with words. They can tell you exactly how they feel, express it, but you're really good at listening. So we marry those worlds together. But maybe I'm not the best at speaking, but I'm a great listener and I want to hear you. So we're coming to, maybe the other person is not as good at listening, I got to work on it, right? And so when we dance, when we come together, we're marrying those skills. We're in lockstep. Dancers, communicators, I'm using them interchangeably, they respect differences and know that when we're communicating, also dancing, that there's an end result. What is the end result? When we come together, let's say, for example, you are in a disagreement with somebody and you're not communicating effectively. Sometimes it's important to slow down, stop for a second, and realize that, you know what, you're coming to the table differently than I am. What's the point of our communication? What's the goal here? What are we trying to accomplish? Because sometimes what's happening is we're going back and forth, and we forget why we came to communicate. So when we're dancing, we gotta remember, what is my end goal? My dancer or communicator, when we're dancing, we gotta be in good eye contact for one another. God, look at you. I'm up here by myself, but I'm looking at each of you, communicating something. So when I'm dancing with my partner, if we're like this and I'm over here, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna make a mistake. Something's not gonna be right. We're not gonna be in lockstep. I gotta be present. You know what it means to be present? When I say be present, what does that mean? Perfect. Being in the moment. When I'm dancing, I can't be like, at 7 o'clock tonight, I'm gonna go see it. I need to be right there. During the summertime, the Olympics, right? What was the gymnast who dropped out of the Olympics? What's her name? Gabby Douglas. No, not Gabby Douglas. You know who I'm talking about, right? What is her name? I totally forgot. Nonetheless, you have one of our Olympians dropped out. And everyone's like, how could you drop out of the Olympics? You have this chance. And she said that she basically, it was a safety situation because she was going through things. And there was something called a twisty. So then when you're up in the air, think about the importance of being present. She's up in the air, twirling to land. So in a moment, if you're somewhere else, if you're like, I have so much anxiety, I'm dealing with this depression, it's wearing on me. And I'm thinking as I'm twisting about how depressed I am. And when I finish here, I want to go lay down in my bed and cry. I'm up in the air. What could happen to you? To break your neck. So the importance of when I'm communicating, I need to be present. And she gave that example. I thought that was perfect. Like the importance of she's up in the air, she got to land right. So when I'm dancing or communicating, I'm making good eye contact. I need to be in the moment. If I'm not giving you 100% of my attention, then I need to communicate. I got to be here. So that means when someone's talking to you all, like, I want to give this as an example because I've done it and I had to stop myself. Because I would do it with my kids. Because I think I'm the queen of multitasking. I can cook dinner, wash my clothes, do some business, send an email, all of that. And my kids will come in the room and they will go, Mommy, or tell me something. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you did it. Look at the picture and show me. I wasn't dancing right because there's no eye contact, which shows I'm listening to you. And I wasn't present because I was in that email. So what I learned to do to teach my children this as well is I say, if it's something absolutely important, because for me in my brain, I need to finish my email or I'm not going to do it later, right? So what I would say is, just find me 1 second. Let me finish this email. I communicated with them what I needed, right? And then when I was done, I put this down. And then now here I go. Honey, what were you going to tell me? And now do that. So if I'm dancing, remember interchangeable communication, I'm making good eye contact and I'm present. I'm being present. I'm in the moment. What are you saying? What are you doing? And if I'm assertive, if I just need to finish what I'm doing, then I finish it. And I let them know, hey, I need to finish that. I respect time and space. When you're communicating something, it's not a good time all the time. You can't have a right now attitude. Like, you got to listen to this right now. Sometimes it's important just to hold off and wait for another time. Maybe in a restaurant, it's a big, heavy conversation, maybe that's not the location. So you got to respect timing and space. You got to move to the rhythm, right? That requires listening. You got to practice. Communication is about practice. That's the way you get it right. During your dance or your communication, when someone doesn't like what they said, the other said, think about Dancing with the Stars. If they missed a step or got something wrong, imagine you're watching it and somebody stormed off the stage because they missed a step. And so when we are communicating, when you don't like what someone says, you don't storm away. You don't retreat. You don't isolate. And so when we are communicating, being mindful about being present and we don't storm off the stage when someone says or does something we don't like. So listening, I'm calling it the unsung hero because we always think communication is about talking. It's bigger than talking. This skill of talking, of listening, is just as important as talking, but just more difficult. It gives you a balance of give and take. So when you tell me something, I'll listen. I'm listening, I can communicate what you said, I can reiterate it. Listening must be intentional, as I said earlier. And a good listener considers what the other person is saying, what they're feeling, and what that person's experiencing. When we listen the way we're supposed to, we don't make any assumptions and we don't do any judgment. So I will give you an example. So we're going to walk through it. 2 types of listening on practice. We got quiet listening. I'm going to make eye contact with you when I'm quietly listening. I'm going to have open body language, meaning I'm just going to be ready to receive it. Maybe I'm not closed off. I'm open. I'm paying attention. And I'm providing acceptance and trying to understand what you're saying. Eye contact, my body language is open. I'm giving you my full attention and I'm providing acceptance and trying to understand. Then I have active listening, different. When I'm actively listening, I'm going to summarize or paraphrase what you said. I'm going to check in about how you feel about what you told me. And I'm going to ask non-confrontational questions. Does anybody know what I mean by non-confrontational questions? Yeah, absolutely. Or if you tell me something, right? I'm not going to, you're going to say, well, today I just stayed home and I didn't go to any parties. I'm not going to say, why did you do that? Why is it confrontational? I might change my question and go, oh, was something wrong? What made you stay home today? It's very different than why you do that. So we want to ask questions to gain more information, but not feel like you're judging what someone said, you're judging what someone told you. So let's practice. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice. And I'm going to need somebody who's brave, a brave friend. And Tiffany gave me some prizes for you. A brave friend to practice with me quiet listening. So all you have to do, the brave friend, is tell me a story about, and it could be anything. Tell me a story about what you did this weekend. And it can be brief. It doesn't have to be anything, but I'm going to demonstrate quiet listening by you telling me your story. So the brave friend is going to tell me what they did, and I'm going to demonstrate quiet listening. So who's going to be the brave friend? I knew from your eye contact you were going to be the brave friend. Okay. Brave friends, tell me about what you did this past weekend. Awesome, awesome. Very good, very good. Okay. Love your story. Awesome. Quiet listening. What did I do? What did I do? Name the, let's talk about the components from what you saw. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Those are the components. So you knew I was listening to her, and she knew I was listening to her because I'm looking at her. The story would have been very different had it been, go ahead, tell me what you do this weekend. Different, right? Different. We do that sometimes. We don't realize it. I gave a phone example, but I was listening. So I'm quietly, oh, it's okay, Brady. I made eye contact. My body language was open. I paid attention. How did I provide acceptance to try to understand? Smiling. Bring it back. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. And then maybe I shouldn't laugh at someone in Paul. It was a little funny. You said she was okay, so. Okay. She's okay. You know, she's in the hospital now. Now it's okay. So quiet listening, right? So listening, and the reason I'm drilling listening is we really do think that communication is about talking. If I know how to talk, I can communicate, but listening is so important. You think of a job interview. They're going to ask you a question. So tell me about yourself. And so, or give me a time when a customer was making you upset. You have to listen to the question carefully to answer it the right way. So we think it's just about what do I say, but what we listen to is so important. So all those components. Now, active listening. And so usually I demonstrate it, but I'm going to let the two of you, two people here demonstrate it. Two great people. To give me the same scenario, same type of scenario, a weekend situation, and I need one friend to tell the story of the weekend, the other friend to show to the group active listening. Who are my two great friends? Okay, so you're going to be my two great friends. Now, who's going to be, and then I have a prize for all my great friends here. So who can be to tell the story? You tell the story, okay? And then you're demonstrating active listening. So look at the list, look at it quickly. And then us friends, we're going to like point out what we saw. Okay, go for it. Okay, what do we think? On our list, anything? Mhm. Mhm. Awesome. Awesome. And so, okay, so summarizing, excellent, excellent. So then if I'm summarizing also, so another thing I could do, very good. And so you did the normal thing, you play video games? What do you play? It depends on the day. So that sounds like, okay, that's a normal thing you usually do. But you did mention, I heard something about a tumor in your eye. It's called a pseudotumor. It's pseudotumor cerebri. It's basically your brain basically pretends that it has a tumor. There is no mass. Have all the symptoms of a tumor. Have to basically medication the rest of your life. To got it, if it's going from it, you can have a lot of complications from it, but it's like spinal fluid and it's a huge So with that, you found out this weekend that you were good and everything was okay. So you got a clean bill of health.
Well, I still have it, but my eyesight is not worse than the previous.
Okay. Okay. So when you heard that your eyesight is improving, the medication helped, what do you feel like?
Oh my God, I'm tired.
I'm sure, right? Awesome. Yeah. What did I do? What did I do? Say it again, please. Talking about feeling, right? Paraphrasing, hearing, drawing something. And that was communication. We danced just now. We danced. We were not dance. Because there was some exchange going on, right? Some give and take. Some asking questions, right? And I could still do some of those quiet listening things. I made eye contact. I'm looking at you the whole time. My body language is open, right? I was paying attention, right? And then I'm summarizing. So you told me this part. So if I didn't understand, the reason why also we summarize and paraphrase, because we think, remember earlier when I was reading the words, and we thought we heard bad or thought we had. Now, if that earlier was, if you don't hear a word correctly, or if you forget something, ask me, right? That's for clarification, because in the process of communication and listening, we might get something wrong. I learned something new today that I've never heard of. You did too, I saw you nod your head. So that's what happens. It is communication is such an enriching process, because although she got to share her experience, I learned something from it. I learned about something that she struggles with. I learned about you. So it's a dance. We danced just now, right? I want to know how you felt, because your medication, I'm sure when you first found that out, I could only imagine what it felt.
It's hospitalized, have a nothing. So it was at a root canal exam, right away, get your rock stuff up here.
Yeah.
I did not do that this year. So found that out. You know, but
Yeah.
so it was a very good experience altogether.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I'm so happy that the medication's working and that you're here.
Yeah.
And then you gave good information. Look at that. We danced. This is where communication is. Now, she was sat there and I'm just listening. I'm saying things. I got my arms crossed. I'm going here. You don't feel open to share. Just, I want everyone to just be mindful. And I think the two of you did a great job, of asking questions. You did great. You summarized some non-confrontational questions. So great. Just demonstrating what it looks like. It's a dance. We're exchanging. So just being mindful. When I'm listening, I can be quiet. But quiet doesn't mean I just don't say anything. I still want you to know I'm paying attention to you. So you could have said that, and I could say nothing in particular, right? But I still want you to know I'm hearing you. When I actively listen and I summarize, I let you know that I'm listening to you. Because, or maybe I need to clarify something. Because maybe I thought you said A, but you said B. So then now, if I say something in particular, you clarify it for me. So we summarize so that we can make sure our communication goes across the way that we intend for it to go. Good job. Excellent. 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 Thank you for sharing that. Anybody have questions? We're dancing here, communication. Verbal and nonverbal, we already went over. Be mindful of your words and how you say them. Be mindful of your words. So when we're talking about verbal, we just covered a lot of nonverbal. It is important how you say things. It is important how you say things. Being mindful of your words and how they come across. Nonverbal. What's my body saying? What's my face saying? Being mindful of those two areas. Communication is verbal and it's nonverbal. Pay attention to this. It's saying something on this. It gives a message. I told you earlier, your relationships. We are in relationships. Now, even if it's not romantic, you have friendships, you have parents, you have grandparents, aunts, uncles. You are in relationship. You have a boss at work. You are in relationship. Communication connects you to that person in some way, shape, or form. And because I told you earlier this, I'm going to go over it again. Relationships break down for different reasons, But communication is mostly at the core of that reason. Either I'm not communicating, maybe the other person I am communicating, they don't choose to listen intentionally to me, right? Or maybe I'm not communicating effectively or the way that I really want to. Maybe I'm being passive, and that's my communication, instead of asserting myself and saying, what are my needs? And remember, it's a dance. So ultimately, we got to be in lockstep. So if I'm talking to you about my feelings, my expectation is that you're giving me your listening. And then you're paraphrasing. If you don't get something, you need to make sure that you clear that up. Poor communication, when we have poor communication, there's a lot of conflict, a lot of misunderstanding. The issues pile on top of each other. So I got the example earlier from my friend here about the silence in the family, right? How, like, you know, a lot of this is not a new thing, so I don't want you to feel like it's just your family, it's my family. Just quiet. No one says anything, fester, you're building resentment because you never address it. So then you just go on, right? That makes for misunderstandings. It breeds more conflict sometimes. I'm not saying that that's your situation, to give me examples, and it makes one thing pile on top of the other. So it's important that we address that. Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. That's so true. I'll give you the example of that. So, I'm going to have demonstration with you about that. Okay. You coming out or you going to come with this? Okay. So, that's an example, right? So let's say, for example, your family doesn't deal with it. But the next thing happens, you don't talk about it. Everybody's going about their business, going to work, going to school, right? And so we never deal with it. And so I ask you what you want for breakfast, you tell me, going back and forth. How's your day? It was good. Okay, what you do today? Uh-huh. What did I have for lunch today? I totally don't even remember what I ate for lunch. I forgot. I think because I was thinking about dinner. And you never liked me before. What happened? What happened? Thank you so much for that. What happened just now? And you're like, what did happen? Blindsided you, because we never dealt with it. We're having a good old time. We thought we argued 2 weeks ago about something that's really important, and we never talked about it. We thought we were good, or we left it alone because we were taught, because it gets passed down from family to family generation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Right out of nowhere. Because she never properly addressed it the way she wanted to. So now it's blindsided. It's like, what? Huh? Perfect example. That's what my goal question was. It was fine. You were not doing it. Just going back and forth. You need back and forth. Communicating. When I don't deal with things or we don't communicate properly, blindsided. Because now it's like, one thing happens, it's like boom, 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 boom. And you're like, what? What happened? And that's what happened with us just now. That's the example. When we don't communicate effectively, it's easy to be blindsided. Because it was like, you gotta like me. What? I thought you said you ate a sandwich. What happened? Like, what? Where did it come from? And that's what it feels like. So it's so important to communicate effectively in the beginning. Say what you mean what you say. Take time personally to process your feelings so that you can communicate effectively. Think with yourself sometimes. Start thinking about, like, hey, you know what? I'm upset with this person. I'm not sure as to why. So let me, before I bring it to them, let me process. So before mom brings it to you, you gotta think about her stuff. Before she calls you and goes, boom, and you're like, huh? Where did that come from? So we have to make sure that's a sign of poor communication. That's how conflicts, that's how there's misunderstandings. That's how issues are piling one on top of the other. We don't want to blindside people. How do we do that effectively? That was how not to do it, right? Communicate. Don't think if I'm just silent, that's good communication. No, you know how I said no news is good news? That's not that way with communication. No communication is not necessarily good communication. Saying nothing doesn't mean you said something. So just being mindful of that. My acronym of THINK, TINK. And that goes back to the verbal part, because we're bouncing from the verbal to nonverbal. If what I'm about to say, like your mom, this is an acronym for your mom, is what I'm getting ready to say true? Is it helping? Do I inspire the person? Is it necessary? Does it come? And when I say inspiring, I want how I communicate to be like to exude something where someone wants to do the same thing. I want to carry myself in a way that makes people go, oh, you know what? She speaks up for herself. I want to try to do more of that. So inspiring in that way that it motivates other people, right? Because that's your mom. Mom probably loves you. So we're not down in mom. She's hard to never forget. We don't have to tell her about it, right? So mom doesn't realize, and our parents don't, and I probably as a parent, I gotta be careful as well. I'm passing something down. I'm passing it down. So I gotta make sure when I'm speaking to my children, I'm saying something truthful. Like if I throw the ball when I throw it and say, you don't like me, I'm like, is that true? Would I really think you don't like me? If you were my friend, I gotta think about, why am I saying this? If I'm frustrated with them because they did something to harm me, is me saying you don't like me helpful? Does that change the dynamic? Think about that. Is it inspiring? Am I saying something that helps them in some way, motivates them? No. Me saying you don't like me, is that necessary right now? I think that. And it's what I'm saying, kind. Our words should be kind. Our words should be kind. Even if I'm telling you I don't like something, I can still be kind. My husband always buys me something to eat. Like he buys little frozen food and I don't like it. So one day he bought something and I was like, oh, it was so nice, a gesture, but I don't like that. Whatever it was, I didn't like it. So I thought about it, okay, am I gonna be passive so he can keep thinking I like it and keep buying it and waste his money because I'm not gonna eat it? Or am I going to be kind and go, hey, thank you so much. I'm so glad you think of me when you go to the store. Next, I'm gonna eat the whatever it was, I can't remember. But like I don't really like that kind. I just wanted to let you know. Like I appreciate you so much, but I don't like lasagna. If I'm communicating passively, I'm like, but he's gonna be upset because he bought it from me. And I don't want to tell him, so I let him keep spending his money on something that I'm not gonna eat. Why? So I was kind, but I communicated my needs. I didn't want to. So I'm thinking about you. So I'm asserting myself and I'm considering your feelings because I don't want to be like, I don't want that, don't buy it again. It's nasty. That's rude. And I want to know, I want to speak in a way that's true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, and kind. You can assert yourself and be assertive and still think of people's feelings. I never want me to tell him, I think it's so nice that he thinks of me when he goes out. But I don't want to waste his money because I don't want that thing. So keep buying me something. But guess what I like? So I'm communicating that. Anyone ever heard of I statements? Heard of I statements? Because we get into that mode. We get into, I've done it. You. You always do this. You. So the person feels like, whoa, attack. So when we use an I statement, we're taking ownership of us. I feel frustrated when you don't call me when you get home late because I worry. I would like for you to call me as soon as you get in. That's it. I didn't make it. You always call me. You always forget to call me, and you never do that. And all I hear is you. So we have to be mindful. Your I statement means you have ownership of you. You. So I want you all to be in practice of I statement. I feel I'm impacted this way. When you, so flip it around. Not you first, but I feel. And then tell the person what you like. Sometimes just say, I feel frustrated when, I ask you to call me when you get home late, just so I can feel safe because I feel scared that like maybe you didn't make it home like, safely. But then tell them, I would like if you could just text me at least when you get home. So when you're saying your I, you could also share with the person like what you would listen without interruption, self-awareness. I told you earlier to look at the styles, be aware of yourself. What body language am I giving? What is my style? What did I learn about communication? How did the intergenerational patterns in my family? I watch my aunt and my uncle. How did my grandma communicate? What did my mom? How did my mom talk to my dad? And all that. How does that impact how I do it? So we don't look at our past, our family's dynamics, so we can criticize it, be resentful. We go, whoa, that doesn't work for me how mom does it or how dad does it. This is how I want it. So we look at it to examine so we can build the best self that we want to be. We want to come to of course, the proverbial table. We want to come to the communication table with the thought process. I want to understand who I'm listening to. I want to have understanding. I don't want to come to fight to be right. I want to come with understanding. We want to empathize is when you put yourself in someone's shoes, not feeling sorry or sympathize. We want to empathize. We want to sometimes agree, disagree. We want to sometimes when we're going back and forth, just take a break. When you're on level 50 and you know you're raging inside, sometimes you got to say to the person you're talking to, can you give me a minute? Right? I'm going to postpone it. And we can talk about this a little bit later. I promise to come back to it and come back to it later. Now, if you do that, like if it's getting real intense, and if you say, can we talk later? Don't make that a segue to exit. Make sure that you come back to it later, especially if it's important. So here's our reflection activity time for you to think about how do you communicate. Today we talked about different communication styles. What's yours? When you saw those passive, aggressive, assertive, and we saw passive aggressive, share with me what yours is. And it's not for judgment. How do you usually communicate? Assertive, passive, or aggressive. Okay. Depending on the situation, right? Awesome. Anybody else? Assertive and aggressive. Okay. And you go back and forth between the two. That means you have a strong desire to communicate effectively. And sometimes maybe the frustration makes the aggressive come in. The home, the style you learn. And so guess what you can always do? That's why we had this conversation today, because it's a process of unlearning something. Once we recognize and have that self-awareness, then we figure out what is effective for my life. My mother, grandmother, father did X, Y, and Z. This is how it impacted me. But this is my life, and this is what I want to do. So with our family we grow up in, there are going to be things that we go, I like that. I like the way mom or dad or grandma does that. And I'm going to have it done in my own style. And they're going to be things you're like, whoa, no way. That does not work for the life I want to live. It doesn't mean I resent, I'm bitter, I'm mad at mom or dad or whomever. It means that I'm just deciding on what works best for me in my life. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, what communication was like in your home. And so out of the listening, speaking, the third question I have for you is what areas of communication do you think you do well? Are you a better listener? Are you speaking? Are you a better speaker? What do you think you do? What's your strong point? Okay. You're more of a better listener. Okay. Anybody else? You're better at communicating as opposed to the listening part. Okay. So then that goes to that last question. What areas do you need to question? What do you think you need to work on? After we talked about what we talked about today, what do you need to work on? More service. Okay, service. Gotcha. Because remember what we said passive was about uncomfortable. Passive aggressive is I'm presenting one way, but internally I'm having a different situation going on, right? Aggressive is intimidating, right? And I might yell. I'm not listening that much to the person. And so we want to make sure that we know what we're really good at and what we need to work on. Communication is constantly something that we're working on. And so remember, I said it's like a dance. We want to make sure that we can't always control our partners in the dance, but do our part. Doing our part, practicing communication, practicing active listening, quiet listening. And at the end of our time, so what I always do in the end is I ask one thing, give me a nugget, something that you're going to take, that you learned from it, that you want to use or whatever, something that you got from sitting here for the past hour with me today. I'm going to get to these, so I've done many times. Right? Two-way street, exchange, right? That word exchange. Right?
It reminds me a lot of a job I had going for your company.
Mm-hmm.
I was selling anything, software a free quarter.
Yeah.
And especially when you talk about the it really reminds me a lot of how that job works. I'm really good at very friendly, very passively presenting myself, but I'm not very good at service. And still not my strength. It's still not my strongest suit, but it did help me a lot to realize that that's what I need to belong to.
Awesome. Good. And I love how life helps us to reflect situations so that we can figure out what do we need to do better and what do we need to improve. Love it. Anybody else? And remember that after, like, I want you to be able to comfortable with me. I remember the definition of passive, it talks about, like, I'm not communicating, right? Because I don't want to make you uncomfortable. It's okay to sometimes, though, I don't want to say this, but I'm choosing that, you know what, I don't have to say everything. Every battle is not mine. But it's when we're uncomfortable, and because we're like, but I don't want to say anything, they might not like it. I'm going to explain what your boundaries or what's healthy for you, that people receiving don't always like it. They don't always like it. At the beginning of the pandemic, I remember going to Panera Bread. I always tell the story, and the woman was so close, and this was the very beginning. So, we were running like 6 feet back up. I'm at the kiosk, and she's like, I'm right here. She's so close to my concert in April 2020, or whatever month it was, early. So I could have been like uncomfortable, feeling strange. But I thought about, I'm a kind person. I want to always represent myself the way that works for me. And I just thought that it would be a good opportunity to say it. And I was nice. I like to make jokes. That's how I communicate a lot. I like it's funny. And I go, oh, not 6 feet. And I just something like that. And she went, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. She backed up. And she got distance from me. And then she started to talk about her kids in homeschool, in private school. And we had a long conversation. It was good. But what if I was so uncomfortable? She was right there. And I would have felt uncomfortable, my heart being fast, like, what she can say. And I would have had that internal process, but never tell her that I don't want her to be a selfie. So be careful with that, because it says that, like, someone's comfort, and I don't mean like people at home or helping someone open the door, but I'm maybe sometimes with being passive, something harms me, and I don't want to tell you because I don't want you to be upset, but they're harming you. But it's good reflection, and it's what we're working on. And as multiple of you said, like, when you look at that, you gave me more than one. Because depending on the situation, we might change it up, depending, right? So just being mindful. I'm hoping today just gave you that mindset to be more self-aware and to work on what works for you, not to judge you. It's an ongoing process. One of my slides says, you have to practice it. Anybody, any of my friends at home, I don't want to neglect you. Anything to share? Oh, they're on mute, okay.